Alex here with a legal nuts and bolts video on issue preclusion. This is also known as collateral estoppel. Some states may actually still refer to this as collateral estoppel, so make sure that you look into that carefully in case you're having trouble finding any reference in your case law to issue preclusion. I previously had done a video on this topic, but that video I'm going to delete because it actually conflates issue preclusion with a child custody principle known as change of circumstances. So if you wanted to look into where that video or where the principles discussed in the previous video went, please watch the video, High Conflict Child Custody, Change of Circumstances. This video, which is a legal nuts and bolts video, is going to cover issue preclusion, which actually applies in any type of case. So that being said, I do want to mention that the reason I was so confused about it before was because my ex's attorney used to cite the change of circumstances requirement in my child custody case all the time, and every time she would cite it, she would also cite collateral estoppel. I don't know if she was just conflating the two issues, which is actually what ended up causing me to, or if she was trying to use both at the same time and it was just confusing, probably to the judge too. So that being out of the way, I'll go ahead and describe what issue preclusion does now. First, I want to mention that issue preclusion is one of two species of res judicata, which is a legal principle. I think in Latin it stands for already having been adjudicated or something like that. It's a legal principle that's there to prevent people from coming back to court and trying to litigate an issue that is either already litigated or has or could have been litigated, but for whatever reason the parties didn't do it. So the former, which is one of the two species of res judicata, the former, which is this video's topic, issue preclusion, is going to be covered now. The latter, which is the one that prevents you from litigating issues that could have been litigated but weren't, is covered in another video. It's a legal nuts and bolts video called called claim preclusion, which is also known as merger and bar. Anyway, now I can finally get into how issue preclusion works. For issue preclusion to work, you have to show 4 different things. If you don't show all 4, it does not trigger and it will not preclude the other person from asserting whatever it is they're trying to assert. Preclusion is an amazing thing when it comes to any kind of litigation, because preclusion can often be the gateway to getting summary judgment on the pleadings. It can get you to the point of not just winning your case, but winning it without even having to go to a trial or an evidentiary hearing. That being said, here's the 4 things that you have to show. You have to show, number 1, that the issue that your opponent is trying to bring up is identical with an issue that was previously brought up. Number 2, you have to show that the ruling on that previous issue was final and on the merits. That's where a lot of these end up getting tripped up. A lot of times, at least in child custody cases, a decision is not final. And a lot of times, a decision was never on the merits, it was just entered by settlement. In child custody cases, that happens all the time. Issues get brought up, but they get resolved by settlement. So issue preclusion doesn't trigger. Number 3, you have to show that the party against whom the judgment is asserted was a party or in privity with a party in the prior case. That sounds confusing because people a lot of times go, well, of course, if the issue was dealt with, you were both there as parties, right? No, there are some people who try to bring up cases that you weren't even involved in and try to ban you from bringing it up. One of the most common ways this happens in child custody cases is CPS. A lot of people will say, oh, no, Alex can't bring up this issue. CPS already came to my house and said that it was unsubstantiated. Well, maybe the issue is identical. Maybe that ruling is final and on the merits, but you were not a party to that investigation. CPS just ran that on their own. They were the ones doing all that, and that wasn't even actually a case. That was just the investigation phase. You can use issue preclusion principles to show a judge, hey, they can't rely on CPS's determination to prevent me from trying to bring it to this court and prove it here. For any people or anybody who thinks that that's confusing or even that that's unfair, keep in mind that O.J. Simpson was found not guilty in a criminal court, but he was taken in front of another judge, a civil court, And in that civil court, they found him guilty and they assessed monetary damages against him. Of course, it's not the exact same thing as what I'm talking about, but it's an example to show people that there are situations where one court may be resolving a certain particular issue and you're not a party to it, and then you may actually want to bring that issue up in court yourself, but you want to be a party to the case. You want to have the ability to turn the wheels of justice and conduct discovery and cross-examine and examine witnesses. Requirement number 3 basically makes sure that a judge does not block you from bringing up an issue just because the issue was already dealt with and it was identical, because you weren't one of the ones that was a party to that case or in privity. So that's requirement number 3. You have the party against whom the judgment was asserted was a party or in privity with a party in that prior case. It's required for issue preclusion to trigger. I don't know if I mentioned this, but I brought this up over and over again in my case when my ex tried to say that CPS found the allegations or whatever allegations that were made against her to be unfounded, that she wasn't a bad mom. I don't care what CPS is. I'm in a child custody case. I am the father. I am the petitioner, and I can bring this issue up, and I have a right to try and prove it to this judge here. Number 4 is that the issue was actually and necessarily litigated. And that may be sort of going into what I was talking about before with regards to a lot of times people just settle. Well, if an issue was just settled, who knows if there may have been reasons that are not connected to whether or not the person actually did it as to why they settled. Maybe they settled because they were too poor to continue litigating. Maybe they settled because they thought it wasn't worth it anymore. Well, a new case may come up another day from there, and the person may say, you know what, in this new lawsuit, I'm kind of concerned what I'm facing here. And so, you know, that last one, I just let it go. But I'm going to fight it here. I'm going to actually get those witnesses to come now because I want to fight this in this case. So number 4, just make sure that you use issue preclusion only on issues that were actually and necessarily litigated. That is how issue preclusion works. I talk about the problems with issue preclusion in the video Change of Circumstances in the context of child custody disputes. You should definitely watch. Issue preclusion is powerful if you can get it to trigger, but oftentimes one of those 4 things won't line up. When they all do line up, it's obviously unfair to go and rehash an issue that's already been rehashed. If the issue is identical, if the decision was final, if you were one of the parties fighting it out, and if the issue was actually litigated, it's kind of duh that you shouldn't be able to just bring it up again and try to fight it again. You are stuck with the determination in that case. That's it. It's done. But as I warned people in the video Change of Circumstances, a lot of times this doesn't happen in child custody cases because so many things just get settled and so many things get brought up partially with other things being left out, you know, floating around. Definitely watch that video if you wanted to see where all of those other principles that I discussed went off to. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and end this video. If anyone has any questions as to how issue preclusion works, please post something in the comments below. I will see you guys next time.